Hey everyone, we'll get started in just a minute. We're still waiting for one of our panelists and waiting for all of you to be admitted from the green room. So please bear with us as we get everybody into the place where they belong. Okay, so that looks like everybody's in from the green room. Good morning. My name is Billy, and I am the founder and organizer of Bookstore Romance Day. And I want to welcome you all to our road trip panel, which will be moderated today by Kathy Burnette, the owner of Lair Books in Indiana. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you to our authors and to Kathy for being willing to do this with us today. And I hope that you're all going to get out to your local indie bookstore and buy some books today as well. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Kathy to get us started. Thank you.
I almost forgot to unmute myself. You would think by now I would be used to like making that happen right away, right? So thank you all for coming. So happy to see everyone here. As Billy mentioned, I'm Kathy Burnette. I own Lair Books in South Bend, Indiana. Lair is an anagram of librarian, which is what I used to do before I quit and opened this crazy bookstore. Just a little bit about us. Our focus is on uplifting marginalized voices. So we're always trying to like center stories that we don't normally see and making sure that our books are looking at joy and positivity and what everyone has to offer so that we normalize these types of books for everyone. We also focus on mostly like strong female characters, or people who identify as female or non-binary, so that we also normalize that conversation as well. So thank you for being here. I just want to do a quick shout out to the sponsors. I'll introduce the authors. And before that, though, a little code of conduct, just to make sure that we are here for the same purpose, and that's to uplift these authors and to hear what they have to say. And so we welcome you to participate, to ask questions, to join in how you can, but to make sure we're creating a safe environment where everybody feels welcome and feels heard. So just kind of keep that in mind. So send us thank you to Harlequin Trade, Avon, Epic Reads, Sourcebooks, Bloom Books, St. Martin's Press, and Bramble. Thank you all for your sponsorship for today. I'm going to go for each author and have them identify themselves to you and let you know a little bit about the books that we'll be talking about. We're going to go with Elia, Olivia, Alina, and then Courtney. All right, over to you. I'm sorry, Elia. We just talked about that, didn't we? We got to
it's all right. It's fine. A lot of people do that. It's normal. So hi, I'm Elia Winters. And I write geeky, kinky, cozy romance. And the book I'm talking about here today is Hairpin Curves, which is a sapphic road trip romance. And it's about two ex-best friends who had a falling out and then have to go on a cross-country road trip together. And of course, fall in love. Spoiler.
Hi, I'm Olivia Dade. I write contemporary romantic comedies, and only after saying that I would love to be part of this session did I realize that I have a ton of books that have a road trip in them. I think because probably my favorite catnip trope is forced proximity. And for me, there's nothing better for forced proximity than putting two people in a car or a train or traveling somewhere together. So it's in a lot of my books, including two that are coming up, but probably the one where it's most prominent, where it's already out, is All the Feels, where there's a road trip up the California coast to a wedding where feelings are had and hotels are defiled in various ways. So that'll probably be the book that I'm talking about today.
Hi, my name is Alina Khawaja. I don't have it in my display name, but my pronouns are she, her. I am the author of Maya's Laws of Love, which is right here. Sorry, the lighting is kind of awful, but it's about a young woman who has always thought she's been unlucky in love, who may have finally met the man of her dreams on the way to her own wedding. So it's a lot of drama and mess, but road trips are always like that. So it's gonna have a lot of fun.
I write mostly historical romance. And I think I'm the opposite of Olivia. I very rarely write books where people go on the road, but I do have The Devil Comes Courting, and to call it a road trip romance is stretching the definition of road trip because it's entirely on boats and trains. So there's no roads involved whatsoever, but they do go over 3,000 or 4,000 miles, which in like the mid 1800s is pretty good. So
I would say the water is a road, right? It's a roadway and they're stuck. There's still forced proximity, and that is not like they can get off the boat unless they want to drown. So I think that kind of works out. That works out for it too. All right. So I'm excited. Let's talk about this idea of road trips. Like road trips can be something that's both emotional, it can be physical, you're traveling somewhere, but you're also just in your head changing as you go through this. So talk about how do the road trip in your book help change the character in your book? Like, what do they learn? How do they become? What's their emotional journey, their emotional road trip, so to speak, with this book? And Courtney, we're going to do anybody jumps in when you're ready. I don't want to have to call on people unless we're slow. And my goal is to listen to what you're saying. And I'm going to try to come up with a conversation as we go this way. So it's a little bit more conversationally instead of panelly. So anybody who wants to jump in, road trip in your book, how does it help your character grow?
I can go first if that's okay. So, in Maya's Lots of Love, Maya has spent her whole life thinking that she's just unlucky. So she's kind of used to bad things happening. So when something bad happens in her road trip journey and it kind of gets tossed at her, she's equipped to handle it because she's like, it's been like this my whole life, but also because it's such a big and important event. She's like, the end of the world. I can't believe this is still happening to me, or I can't believe that, it's starting to affect other people, because the joke is she's at one point when she's on the plane, there's a lot of turbulence, and she's like, I can't believe my bad luck is spreading to other people now. It's not just me. But those blocks that kind of come up in the road is kind of forcing her to really confront what it means to be unlucky or not really knowing what she's doing, because it's such an important journey that she's being on. Literally, she's going to her wedding. So she's like, is it really all these bad things happening to me, or am I looking at situations through a bad lens? So throughout the book and throughout the road trip that she's on, she kind of has to confront those two ideas.
I'll hop in after that. Oh, we got a standoff.
You go ahead.
I'll take that and then pass it over.
I feel like we should have a cage fight then before we go any further. Just duke it out.
So in Hairpin Curves, like with Olivia, it's characters going to a wedding, and it's Megan and Scarlett, and the road trip has, I think, the biggest impact on Megan, who the place she's worked has just closed down. She's been working at a diner. She realizes she's never really done anything with her life. She gets a generous severance package. And she realizes she's never left Florida, and she's always had these big dreams for herself that have been so easy to put off for the immediacy of the moment, as we all know how that can be. And so she realizes she's let her life get very small. And this pushes her to do some of the things that she's always had on her someday list. And even just the act of doing all this logistical planning and then leaving the state is a huge step forward for her, and showing that she can be more than what other people have thought that she can do. For the two characters in the relationship, they've had this big falling out, and neither of them really knows what it's really about. And having that forced proximity and all those hours together, they have to eventually unpack what happened between them. And I think that's one of my favorite things about road trips in general, is something about not having to make eye contact. I think when you're driving, opens people up to a lot of conversations that they otherwise wouldn't have. And I think it's a really special and odd liminal space that's fun to explore.
The premise of All the Feels is that the male main character, Alex, is a star on a blockbuster fantasy television show that is not Game of Thrones, but is not Game of Thrones. And he's given a minder, which is something that does occasionally happen, such as Robert Downey Jr. needed one, has needed one, I think, at least a couple times. And actually, I think maybe married one of them. But leaving that aside, the minder that he has is Lauren. She's the female main character who is a burnt out emergency room uh, mental health practitioner and is tired and sort of does everything for everyone else and is not comfortable thinking about her own needs. So part of what happens on the trip is that she has just been fired from the job. And so for the first time, she does not feel a need to have a professional distance from him. So part of the road trip is forced proximity plus no longer a sense of holding back, because even though she's not working for him, it's, she feels a sense of professional, sort of that she needs to be professional about things. But part of it, emotionally for her, is that he originally wanted to go on a much longer road trip with her. And she does not want to have him, and he was going to pay for everything because he's a television star and she's an out of work currently mental health practitioner and does not make a lot of money. And she refuses him and really cuts it short and really feels terrible about every time he spends money on her. And at some point sort of comes to the realization when they're having sort of a transformative road trip where she gets to see things she hasn't seen before and has relaxation and joy and beauty around her, that she has just denied herself, an extra week or two of this experience just because she feels bad about it. And she sort of starts to question, is it that she thinks she's just not worth it? Like, he wants to do this for her. He wanted to do this. She would have loved it. She turns it down and she begins to sort of think harder about how she actually feels about herself and sort of her reflexive denial of her own needs and for the help of anyone else. So it's I think it sort of moves the ground beneath her feet a little bit in a variety of ways, and not just because they become intimate for the first time on the trip.
So I think there's a couple of different road trips. This book takes place over the course of several years. And so there's a couple of different road trips that actually take place. And you can kind of separate them into sort of like the heroine's journey and the hero's journey. And the reason I do that is because the journey that takes place with the heroine, both the hero and heroine are physically present. And by that, I mean that the book starts, our heroine in this book is named Amelia Smith. She is a Chinese woman who was when she was a child, her mother was fleeing a revolution that was happening in China, and she ran into an English missionary. And the English missionary, she was worried for the life of her child in the refugee, and the English missionary offered to take her child, and the woman gave her child to the English missionary. This is something that happened probably more than it should have in China. And her last memory of her mother, which is, this was many, many years ago. She hasn't seen her mother in 20 years. Her only memory of her child of her mother as a child is a vague memory of her mom saying that she's going to come back, and then she never does. And so you have this this woman who's Chinese, who's raised by an English missionary. English missionaries in the time may have meant well, but they had some racism that they had to untangle, and she has internalized a lot of that. And so she is in this very push-pull moment of her culture where her mother has this feeling about what she should be doing in her life that is determined by what a good English girl of her age would be doing. And she's not a good English girl. She's Chinese, and it's going to affect everything that happens to her. So right around this time, as her mother is trying to push her into a marriage that is really terrible, because it's the right thing for someone who is like her to do, she gets an offer of employment from a man who has heard about her and the work that she's been doing. And the work that she's been doing really is just something that she thought of as for fun, was that she has a brother who was also adopted. He's not Chinese, he's Irish, but that's not really super relevant. And they both started playing around with Morse code when they were younger. And she decided that she was going to come up with a Morse code for the Chinese language. So this book takes place at a time before Morse code for Chinese language existed. And the thing to understand is that Morse code for Chinese language is actually very stupid. I'm not going to get into it. Like the initial version of it was written by like a French dude who just was like, well, we'll just have like these 1,000 characters and they'll be mapped onto numbers. And it was a terrible idea. And doing it has actually like put Chinese computing back like 30 years. It's just, I mean, I'm not going to get into it. But in any event, this book is kind of an alternate history in which somebody lays the telegraph over the Pacific Ocean about 40 years before it actually happened in reality, without, or 30 years, without having to annex Hawaii first. So for her, this guy shows up and offers her employment, and the decision to go with him pulls her away from this world where she was raised, and it allows her to sort of like get separation from something that she has been told all her life. This is how you must be. This is who you must be. This is how things are. And it allows her to start exploring a culture that she was never allowed to explore while she was with this English missionary. So the trip takes her from Fuzhou, where she's staying with her mother in the English section, sorry, I can't say that word, to Hong Kong, to Shanghai. And that's sort of like the first journey. And it's a withdrawing from a place that felt like safety because it's all that she had ever known. She takes a second road trip later into the interior of China when she discovers that, in fact, her mother has looked for her and her adopted mother had just never told her. And so she goes to visit her real biological mother and discover the heritage that she had not been allowed to meet her family, all of this stuff. And so it is really a journey into discovery, away from like increasingly into something that she'd never imagined before. Now, Grayson's journey is also different because when he is on a boat, like 98% of the book, and she's actually not with him for most of the time. The fun thing is, because he's laying telegraph cable, they had to figure out if the telegraph cable would break. And so they had to lay the telegraph cable with the cable live so they could see if there was a break in the cable, because there would be a disconnect in the signal. But this means that you could actually send notes to somebody using the telegraph cable on the boat. So this is a book set in, 1870 something, and they have internet on the boat, effectively. It's the world's slowest internet. They can't say a whole lot, but for some, like this book was actually written in the middle of COVID. And I think that's relevant because in some ways, like the thing about a road trip is you do have forced proximity with the people who are with you, but it's also forced isolation from everything that was around you. And so in this way, like Grayson is using this journey as a method to isolate himself from his family, from all these things that had happened to him and to his family that he is not ready to address in his life. And so for him, the road trip, with this tiny trickle of information in to this, that connects him to this woman who's going through this transformative journey, allows him to start opening up. So that's kind of the road trip journey here.
Okay, all of those sound amazing. One thing I heard throughout each person talking is there's some kind of denial that happens in each one. And Maya, you've got denied joy, basically denied love, because she feels like she can't have it. So she has, because of all of these laws that has happened in her life, that she's come up with in her life, that everything will go wrong, that this and that. So she has that denied love. You've got Maggie with her denied dreams because she's doing this one thing and she's stuck in that and not thinking about it. You've got the denied beauty when they're going on the trip and all the fields and she's finally like without the job. Olivia, she's like, okay, now I can look at this, I can look at him and I can talk to him. And then kind of in yours, Courtney, she's been denied. She's denied her heritage. She's denied self, really, like her self-worth, because she doesn't get to be who she fully is based on the way she's been raised. And how does this denial go with this forced proximity? Like, how does this whole thing, you're coming to terms with what you haven't been able to have or do with this, now I'm on this journey. How did you guys make those two things work together? If that makes any sense at all.
May I jump in about something very quickly first? Is my book was also written during COVID. And I saw Elia, I was wondering if all of us wrote sort of our heaviest road trip book during COVID. And I want to get back to your question, Kathy. I just
No,
thought that
I
that was
like
very
that because
interesting.
was yours, Alina, was yours during COVID? Did you write that during COVID?
No, I wrote the first draft in 2021. So technically
That's kind
during
of
like
still.
the height of COVID, but yeah, it was, yeah, actually, it was, I guess I would say it was around when the lockdowns were starting to lift more and more.
So are you thinking, Olivia, was this born out of a need to move, a need to go somewhere because you were stuck in one place? And so did that lead you to the road trip?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think that was definitely part of it, and at least partially consciously. Um, eh, my family is in the US, and I was in Sweden, and had not, like, we moved in 2018. We're just sort of getting settled. Um, and part of sort of my relief with the thought of living in a country that didn't feel like home to me was that I would be able to go back home regularly and particularly see my mom. And my mom, she's fine now, but was diagnosed with breast cancer basically as the lockdowns began. And it was, eh, so even though my mom's not in California, but the idea of sort of being able to travel and see things in a place that felt more like home to me was very, very much a part of that book. So there was the desire for me to be able to travel, which was always a release for me, but also the idea of being sort of closer to home was big for me at the time. Oh, and I also want to say I'm sorry that I said during COVID because COVID is still here. So just to be clear, like I understand that that's not done, but it was in the earliest period of COVID.
Anybody else?
I had conceptualized hairpin curves before lockdowns began. And I was writing it in the months like January, February of 2020. And then my first deadline was the end of March 2020. And so I felt like a lot of the most of the writing that I was doing and the editing and the refining was happening while the world was shutting down. And it felt like a really unusual juxtaposition to be writing something like as COVID is consuming all of my thoughts, to have these characters just going into restaurants and staying at hotels, and how strange and jarring and disconnected that felt. And like what a unique like moment that I will always think of when I'm rereading it for that reason.
Yeah, I think for me, I just wanted to have fun. Like, life had not really been fun in so long because of COVID. So it was like, let me have these characters just do whatever I want them to, not have it be so serious, even though the book is a drama, so it is serious. But it's like you said, just having them go out and do things that I wanted to be doing that I couldn't because I was stuck at home. And I think I was extra upset because I had to do my entire fourth year of university online, and I had started writing the book after it had ended. So I had to do graduation at home, and I'm like, I'm sick of being here. I'm sick of being at home. I just want to go out and do something. And the only way I could do it was through my characters.
It's kind of interesting. I feel like mine is like the flip side of that, which is that I feel like I was using the journey not as a way of getting out, but as sort of like a mirror for what isolation feels like. Um, because I think it may be because I'm writing historically, and so the degree of isolation you feel like when you're I don't know if that makes any sense. When you're traveling at like you maybe have letters that take months to arrive. Um, so I don't know. I sort of felt like just the degree of travel in my book was almost a metaphor for COVID and the isolation you feel and sort of like being locked down with specific people who maybe were not of your choice, you know? So a little different.
I appreciate you saying that. Because I think, and I think this ties back in to what you were asking earlier, Kathy, about the denial, that I think that road trips are or can be just a time for really intense introspection. And I think when you're having people going through, like, it's hard to run away from all of the things in your brain when you're with your own head, whether someone's there or not for a long period of time. And I think that's why it can be such a transformative experience for people, because you have to look inward at some point. At some point, the radio stations run out and the conversation dies down and you're left with your own thoughts. And I think that can be a moment of profound growth and can be very isolating, regardless of the time period and regardless of who you're with.
All right. Trying to see if we want to go more the same direction. Do we want to switch a little bit? Talk about the setting then in your book. Talk about a little bit more about why this boat, why this breakdown, this bus breaking down, like why these particular vehicles and this actual particular road trip, you know, going up the East Coast or going, we're over in Pakistan, like why these particular places and vehicles to get to where you needed to go. Why did you need this for your story?
Okay, so
sorry. Courtney, you can go. Yeah.
So I feel like one of the things I was trying to do in this book and was just I was trying to write about sort of like the personal impact of colonialism in this book. And so it's why you have somebody who's trying to sort of like discover like the idea of somebody who was raised in an English household, but who is ethnically Chinese, trying to sort of like make a bridge with a culture that she was denied throughout her childhood, is very much an impact like of sort of like the diaspora Chinese being robbed of culture in a variety of different ways, and trying to come back to it. And so one of the things that I was trying to do was sort of like talk about how infrastructure depends on certain colonial aspects, and also how it can subvert it, depending on how it's deployed and how it's used. Which is, I don't know, I feel like really weird saying this because it's like a romance novel. It's supposed to be fun. It is fun, I promise. But also, like, you know, one of the things that like the boats are doing is like, when you talk about having who has ships, like in the time, like the British, because the British Empire was so large, they had refueling stations everywhere. So you have your steamships and they can get coal everywhere. And that creates this sort of like, you know, it's really hard for like independent people to break through. You know, you have a small nation and they don't have the weight of the British Navy behind them protecting all their ports. They have to pay extra to do certain things, like, so you have all of these things in there. And so like I really wanted to be talking about how people communicate and how are the communications we have are just so deeply dependent on things that have been built before. And like the more you like sort of like chip away at it, the more you see like how much there is that relies on things that we never think about. So like I really like infrastructure is, in some sense, you know, the stuff that we have in this world today is built on colonialism. And like one of the things that I talk about in the book is like when you're laying telegraph lines under the sea, you need something that insulates them from the salt water because you're running electricity through there. And today we have like Bakelite, which is like a modern compound that we use. But back then they used gutta percha, which is a latex that came from a tree. And this tree only grew in Malaysia. And the British response to getting this in order to start building their infrastructure was basically to conquer as much of Malaysia as they could. The Dutch took the rest, and then clear cut like millions of acres, just without fail, right? And the argument behind that was it's cheaper than anything else you can do. And it's like, well, not if you add in the cost of like putting down all the revolts for people who are now starving because you destroyed their land, right? So it's I don't know, it's this conversation about how it feels like every step that we take, we don't actually see the impacts of it. But if you like really dial into it, so one of the reasons this book is set largely in China, and then in parts of the Pacific Ocean, is because I feel like historical romance so much focuses on England. And, you know, I do this myself, but like you have people who are sitting in England and they're drinking tea and you never ask yourself, like, where does the sugar in that tea come from? Where did that tea come from? You know, someone adds a little bit of rum to it. Where did that come from? Right? Like, what are they wearing? Where did that come from? And so like, I feel like a lot of historical romance just sort of like slides over the fact that like all these people in these wealthy gowns drinking this fine substance, there is so much suffering in every single little bit of it. So this is one of a book that I wanted to write to sort of like just try and uncrinkle it just a little bit so you could like hold up a mirror to this tiny little part and be like, oh, that's a lot of suffering. And also look at what it looks like to untangle it, which is I think the point of the book. The point, like, I don't know.
I love all of Courtney's ideas because for me it was like bus crashes are dramatic. Let's put one in there. But seriously speaking, I went to Pakistan for the first time after like 15 years in February of 2020. And I came back right before everything shut down. So I clearly remember like on maybe my last or second to last day there, we found out they had their first case of COVID in Karachi. I was in Lahore at the time, but I was like, no, I'm going home. Like I'm not staying here anymore. But after being there, you know, going back after such a long period of time, I was like, I really want to set a book here. I think it'd be so fun. I think it'd be so interesting. And then, you know, in the book, Maya goes back to Pakistan because she's going to have her wedding there. And I know a lot of people who have done that because most of the time, like a lot of the times they'll have a majority of their family in Pakistan. And a lot of those people can't afford to come to a place like Canada or the US for a wedding. So it's just easier for you to go back there and do it. It's so funny because you hit a few places in the book. So it starts in, it's Toronto. Yes. I was asked to make it more American and generalized. So, but it's very clearly Toronto. So you start from Toronto and then you go to Switzerland because originally the book was supposed to go from Toronto right to Pakistan. But as I was writing it, I was like, it's not working. Like they need more time together before they get to the country of their destination. And I remember when I was going to Pakistan, I flew over Switzerland because I have a friend who lives there. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm flying over this friend. But then I thought, okay, if you can fly over there, you can make a landing there. So when I decided to have it in Switzerland, a friend pointed out to me afterward, they're like, you know, that's so genius because Switzerland's, you know, their whole thing of neutrality. So it's like these two characters who don't like each other. Now they're in a literal space where they're neutral and they have to get to know each other. And I'm like, yeah, I totally did that on purpose. But afterwards, I also got to include like my favorite K-drama, Crash Landing on You. If you read the book, you know, you know. So I got to incorporate so much of that into the book, and it kind of turned into this really weird blend of so many cross-cultural things. And I think that's really like the diaspora experience, is being like you're not from any one place, or your influences that you like aren't from any one area. And the reason I chose a bus actually instead of another plane is because I wanted the bus to break down in kind of a rural area in Pakistan. I didn't specify where, but the whole idea was because, you know, Pakistanis, or specifically Muslims, have not historically had a really good representation or really good portrayals in media. And I wanted to show, like, you know, yes, people can be like that, but there's so much more to my people than that. So like when Sarfraz and Maya get stuck in the village, like immediately there's a villager who's like, come stay with me. Like, no, I'm not going to let you go to they don't even have hotels. Like, I'm not going to let you go to a hotel or like stay on the bus or anything. come stay with me. Like a Pakistani, you will never leave a Pakistani's house hungry. If they need to give you, like if you mess up your shirt, they'll give you the shirt off their back. I just wanted to show a different portrayal of people, especially like people who are in a more rural or poorer areas. And also because there's this one movie, Viazada, it technically takes place in India, but the kind of rural landscape is so beautiful. And I wanted to show the beauty and the fun and the kind of like just juxtapose what people's expectations of Pakistan and Pakistani people are like. And then I included a rickshaw drive because everybody rides rickshaws in Pakistan. I couldn't write a book based in Pakistan and not put a rickshaw ride.
So my road trip takes place between Florida and Quebec. And I live in Massachusetts. And I grew up in Florida. I was born in Massachusetts, grew up in Florida, and we moved back to Massachusetts when I was a teenager. And our whole family was in Mass, and my parents didn't fly. So when I was growing up, we'd make the road trip from Florida to Massachusetts once or twice a year, every year growing up. And like we were doing it before Highway 95 went all the way to Florida. Like we were doing it on the back roads in Georgia. And they're some of my most formative memories. And and I've done the trip from Massachusetts to Quebec, and I've done a lot of road tripping myself. So for me, it was like I knew this trip. I knew what they were going to encounter. I knew what the weather was going to be like along the way. Megan and Scarlett stop at places that I would not have stopped at, but I thought that they were the places she would want to go. And some of it was really indulgent, that it would, yes, she would think that it would be really fun to go to Salem, and that's a fun place to write about. So it was neat to like, and of course I wanted them to be snowed in because that's another one of my favorite tropes. So that's easy enough to make happen when they're driving through Vermont in February and such. So I picked a lot of locations that I know and a trip that I know really well. And it was interesting to like re-envision it through this lens of not my family trips, but these two people and what it would be like for them.
Okay, we do have a couple questions in the Q&A, and it kind of would talk to Elia, you talked about picking places that they could stop and looking at people's houses, and for Alina, and just, I think Courtney, you said yours takes place at two different times almost, like because you have a year, 2 years, like it takes a longer time for your trip. So if somebody wants to know, like, how did you manage the pacing? Like, what does that look like? When do you make a stop? When does this happen? When is that, like for some road trips, so we got to keep moving. How do you manage the pacing of writing and a road trip story?
In my case, very badly. I my initial draft of All the Fields was 133,000 words, and that was after I got to about 50,000 words and looked at my plan for the book, and I hope you don't mind swearing, but was like, oh shit. I saw how much was still left ahead of me, and I'm like, I'm not even close to halfway through this book. So the road trip was originally going to be about twice the length. And then I had to go through and sort of reevaluate, like, how long could they reasonably. That is actually when Lauren cuts the trip really short. It's because I had to cut the trip short, and it worked for her character, but and so there was originally going to be like, they were going to stop at the Madonna Inn. There was going to be all sorts of other stops and shenanigans. No. Everything that I thought could be cut without damaging the story itself and like the heart of the story got completely cut because all of it was running way too long. Way too long. But in my plans, there was even more. God knows how long it would have been. I can't even imagine because again, 133 without half stuff. So I'm sure you all were more disciplined than I.
Yeah, so for me, I actually had a little bit of structure to work with because in the book, in Pakistani weddings, it's usually 3 days. So you have the mehndi, which is technically borrowed from Indian culture, where before the women used to get their mehndi, like their henna tattoos on their hands done on that day, but now in Pakistani culture, it's kind of just another day to celebrate, like before the woman is and the man is officially married. So then the second day is known as the barat, which is when the man comes up on his horse with his whole family to come to the bride's house and kind of take her away. And then on that day, the nikah is read, which is the religious ceremony, and you sign the contract and everything. And then the third day is known as the walima, which is when you officially present the bride and groom as a married couple to the public. So I knew I had to work with those 3 days in the pace of the plot, but I also knew that because it was a road trip, like they needed to have a few days together first. So originally it was 3 weeks that the book covered, but then my editor, when she came in, she's like, this is too much time. Like you need to tighten the pace to kind of make it more urgent and more moving along. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. So there was originally an extra day in the Switzerland arc. I cut it. In the Pakistan arc, there was actually a lot more time when Maya got to her family home, but then I had to cut more days because again, my editor was like, you gotta keep it tight. And it's so funny to me because I've had people say, like, I wish they had spent a little bit more time in Pakistan, like when Maya got to her home, but before the wedding festivities started. And I'm like, there was more time. They made me cut it. So that's kind of how I structured it. So it really went from like 3 weeks to 2 weeks.
Some of mine was determined by when I wanted them at each stop. So like I want them at Tybee Island at sunrise. I want them in New York City at night. I want and then thank goodness for Google Maps, because I spent so much time like, how long would this logistically take? When are they eating? When are they taking bathroom breaks? Because I'm not going to include all of that in there, but I want it all to check out. And so there was a lot of like writing and changing and mapping. For me, one of the challenging things was that I can't write and shouldn't write like 6 straight days of people talking. And so there's gotta be something, they're having these big moments and these big revelations, but sometimes they're just quietly listening to their music. So music played a big role in thinking about moving them in and out of moments and conversation, and then giving myself permission to jump in time and to say, okay, we're gonna move ahead to the next day, and the reader's gonna fill it in and it's gonna be all right. And so that zooming in and zooming out was really guided by where I needed them on their emotional journeys. And a lot of that changed in edits, where my editor was saying, this conversation really should happen later and this one earlier. And then just to have it feel more like a clear arc.
Yeah, so I do have to say, I think that time skips are really important, especially for if you're writing a book where a lot of the action happens when they're on a journey, and then there's periods of time where they're not journeying and they're just off doing separate things. Time skips are your friends. Maybe they can exchange a letter or two. And that's kind of what I did. This is actually like the longest book I've written, and I tried to compress it as much as I could, but there was just a lot of stuff. I think it ended up being like 115,000 words. And I think my books normally run like 90-ish or something like that. So that's kind of the way it worked. For me, the pacing difficulties that I had were largely about finding an emotional strand that was running through it, and you could keep the strand sort of like consistently tense and the points in the story that I needed to focus on had to be about those strands, right? So you couldn't have a stop on the road trip that was just like purely for fun and not doing anything. It was always, and like, you have the 2 strands of the story with the hero working through his own issues and the heroine sort of like working through hers, and then like the sides, the very large side story of laying a trans-Pacific telegraph line and also coming up with a Chinese language telegraph version, which was a lot harder than I thought. All of those things like have to be happening in the context of this emotional journey. And so you have to be seeing that tension in every single scene you're in. And if you don't have that tension, then the pacing is never going to come out right. And so if you come up with a scene and you just can't find the emotion in it, the scene's got to go, right? So this is the longest book I've written. I probably ditched another 50,000 words of stuff that just wasn't working for something that was going to do the job better along the way. Between the first and the second draft, I rewrote like 30,000 words. Between the second and the third draft, I rewrote like another 40,000 until I felt like I had it at the point where it was like I had that emotional tension that was going through the whole thing. And that's kind of what it felt like. There was just like when you have a journey, sometimes you want to include things on the journey because you know they'd be part of the journey, but the actual journey is the emotion. And so if you're not focusing on that emotional journey at every single point, then your journey isn't doing the job it needs to do.
Okay, well, that's been amazing. And we are like really getting close to the end of our hour here together. So I just have a couple more things I wanted to talk about. One, like just turning this a little bit more lighter. Somebody asked if you could take a trip somewhere, where would it be? But I'd like for you to look at that, but also who would you take with you? Like, is there a character in the book you would take with you? Like if you were going on a road trip, where are you going? Who's going with you? And hopefully it's a character from one of your books.
Well, I'd love to go to either Switzerland or South Korea. Honestly, those are places that like I wanted to go, so I put them in my book. But I don't think I'd take Sarfraz or Maya with me. One, because she's so like ready for chaos to kind of happen. So I feel like she'd be kind of annoying. I'd be like, girl, it's not that deep, calm down. But also like I wouldn't want to take Sarfraz either because he's kind of mean. So like if something were to happen and I felt bad about it, he'd be like, well, suck it up. Like we'll just do something else. And I'm like, do you think that's what I want to hear right now when my trip that I spent money on is going wrong? So if I would have to take somebody, I'd say I'd take my sister.
So one of the things that I wanted to do for a while now, and which I hope I will do at some point in my life when I have like an extra 3 months, there's a trail in Japan that's along the east side of the Pacific Ocean. It goes along the coast. It's called the Michinoku Trail. It's about 1,000 kilometers long, and you can walk it. And the great thing about walking it as compared to doing like the Pacific Coast Trail is that there's actually like places you can stand that are not like backpacking the entire time with like a tent. And I'm almost 50 years old. Backpacking in a tent is like my back doesn't love it. Um, so I would love to be able to do that. If I had to take a character from my book, I would take Amelia because she's a nerdy polyglot, and we would have a lot of fun talking about stuff. And if we weren't able to communicate with someone, she would figure it out.
I was fortunate enough. My husband and I just went to Scotland a couple of weeks ago and drove all over the place out there, and so that was incredible. That was something we wanted to do for a while. But I've spent all my life on the eastern part of the US. Like I've done a few flights out west, and I really want to do that classic east to west American road trip. And I think like if I'm just focusing on hairpin curves, I think that Scarlet would probably be more fun to take than Megan. And I hate to say that out loud because obviously like we often find elements of our characters in ourselves, and vice versa. And Megan is the very organized part of me. And so I don't need that. Like I've got me, and Scarlet is the part of me that if I ever let myself have more fun, that would be her. And so I think she would make me have more fun than I would have otherwise.
When I go back and forth to the US, we usually take Iceland Air and are in Reykjavik for the layover. And they have a program where you can actually stay for a week without buying a new plane ticket. And if I usually want to spend maximum time with my mom as I can because she's almost 80. And but if that's, at some point I would love to, if she could even come to go explore Iceland. The landscape is stunning, and it's unlike a landscape that I know and have seen anywhere else. So I would really love that. I also used to read a lot about natural disasters as a kid, so volcanoes is something I would love to be closer to. As far as if we're talking about all the feels, as far as who I would take, I mean, Alex would definitely be a hoot. But here's the thing: when I travel with my family, and again, I've just been traveling quite a bit, I am the one who sort of has to hold things down because my family is wonderful, also likely to like put their passports somewhere and maybe or maybe not find it anytime soon. So I'm the one who holds on to all the documents and sort of arranges things and makes reservations and so forth. And so in some ways it would be sort of nice to go with Laura. She would do some of that as well because she's very pragmatic and organized. But on the other hand, I would feel bad taking advantage of that because she has to do that for everyone. So I'd probably end up doing it myself anyway. So what I would do is send Lauren on the trip by herself to enjoy herself, maybe with Alex to take care of her along the way, because I don't want to take advantage of her, but it would be nice to have someone else do stuff. Organizational stuff. My family is amazing and funny and so lovely, but they're chaotic. And it would be nice to have someone else be sort of the base.
Okay, well, this is my last question before we wrap it up. I want to know, what is your brain consumed by right now? Like, what is just taking up, anytime you get a moment free, you think about this thing or this idea or whatever's happening in your life. If you can tell us, what is your brain consumed by right now?
For me, it's ATEEZ. They're a K-pop group. I just went to their concert. It was like a week ago, and I'm so sad. Like the post-concert depression has been so real. But literally the next day after the concert, I went to Ottawa on a trip, and just the whole 6 or 7 hours was just listening to their music the whole time. Oh gosh, I love them so much. They're a really great group. If you're ever curious, check them out. They're awesome.
So for me, it's currently 1880s US history. I know that's not like, this is why I'm a historical romance writer, but like one of the reasons I'm sort of like really getting deep into it is it's a time in which, so Reconstruction was ending and we had a large period of sort of like deeply anti-Black backlash with the building of Jim Crow. You had large anti-Chinese sentiment with the first ever exclusionary immigration bill passed. You had a time when very wealthy people ran the entire world and nobody could stop them from doing anything. Anyway, it doesn't at all look anything like the time we're living in right now. And so it feels very like somebody's holding up a giant mirror and you're looking at it and you're going, oh, yeah, we've been here, haven't we? This looks like what a terrible time that was. Oh man. And in some ways it's easier when you're thinking about somebody else going through it. I don't know if that makes any sense. So that's my brain.
My brain's been divided into a lot of areas recently. So I've got, stuff for the day job and like really fun stuff. My husband and I have been binging What We Do in the Shadows, the series, more than once. Has just been our like comfort rewatch that we've been loving. And for writing stuff, I've been doing all this research for this book that I have yet to write that keeps like living in various outline forms on queer women in World War II, and specifically the pigeoneering program of the training of messenger pigeons, which we used all the way up until the Korean War, and the history of like how you train pigeons to be used in war, and the nuances of that. I've read so many like scanned pigeoneer manuals and all of these historical accounts, and it's been like the weirdest and most interesting deep dive that I'm having a great time with. And now I like need to write the book, but it's been super fun to research.
If I'm being absolutely honest, my brain is divided into two sections. One of those sections is devoted to Kamala Harris's campaign and sort of following all that. And that's probably the greater section. And the other section is devoted to cheese. It's the other thing that I've been doing a lot, which is really like cheese. And I've been trying to eat different types. And I'm trying to figure out if I can justify to myself. There's one type from France that you sort of has, it's like this tiny little knife that you put around and it makes these beautiful florets of cheese. And I'm going to slaughter the name of the cheese. So apologies. It's like Tedemoine. Anyway, but I'm like, can I justify like a cheese that I've never had before? Can I justify getting one of these special things? And the answer will probably, depending on how stressed I am by the election, it might be yes at some point. So that is where my mind is. Politics, cheese.
This connection is blowing my mind because we've gotten really into cheese over this last year. I literally just went to a cheese workshop last week. And I know exactly Tete de Moines. I've like got my local cheesemonger. We got to talk cheese. This is a connection.
So I just want to briefly apologize for being late. I'm just really bad at time zones. I'm sorry. Elia, I have a pigeon story. So I went to grad school at Berkeley in the chemistry department where they made once you hit the nuclear revolution, they made like all the elements that you see in the periodic table that all go at the bottom. They're like, very radioactive and don't last very long. And so there's a period where they were making these elements at Berkeley and they'd have to send them down to the cyclotron at Stanford to get analyzed, but they couldn't get them there fast enough. And so this is before anyone knew anything about the dangers of nuclear stuff. They put them on carrier pigeons. And so they'd attach this radioactive thing to a carrier pigeon and just be like, go down to Stanford. It was the fastest way to get it there. But some of them didn't arrive. So you're like, it happened. Good job. Great work. Love environmental regulation, guys. Let's go, Kamala.
Let's go, Kamala. 100% agree with that. First hope I felt was when that ever since then, it's just been like, but also anxiety. But we have a cheese shop here, like who's a friend of mine owns it. I go there all the time and I don't even like cheese that much, sorry. But she comes up with these, like they have a farm that they're making this cheese too. And so it's these weird combinations that she puts together and it's just so fascinating to me. And we get cheese cookbooks for them so that they can sell them in the store and I didn't realize that was such a big thing. You could have cookbooks devoted to cheese. So that's kind of amazing. But thank you. This was way beyond anything I had expected. So I want to thank each of you for taking this time to spend with us and tell us all about your books and the history behind it and what you're doing. And it's just, I hope this leads to lots of sales for you. So people who came, please make sure you're buying all of these books so that we can have more panels just like this in the future. That's the only way that these authors get to keep doing this wonderful work, is that we need to support them, not just by showing up to something free, but actually putting our money out there to support them. Thank you all for coming, and thank you all. And I'm going to turn it right back over to Billy.
Hi guys, this is Billy. This is Billy from Bookstore Romance Day again. I just want to thank Kathy for moderating this panel. Thank you to all of the authors for being here. I'm so grateful to all of you. Thank you to everyone who attended. And I hope that you're going to get to either attend another virtual event with us this weekend, or better yet, get out to your local independent bookstore and buy some books and show them that there are romance readers who are buying books from them, so that we can keep doing this. Everyone who registered to attend is going to be entered into a drawing to win one of, we have 9 panels, so 9 Libro FM audiobook credit packs. So those will all be announced sometime next week. And thank you all so very much. You make it worth all of the pain that I go through to get here. So have a great afternoon and go buy some books.